This week, actor Donald Gibb passed away at the age of 71. But what he left behind was the greatest bromance in martial arts movie history. All right, guys, so today I'm revisiting Bloodsport, the 1998 martial arts movie classic starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. And it was his first movie where he was the lead. He had done a couple of movies before that. And it was the movie that just shot him into superstardom almost immediately. At least it was very much a underground cult movie classic, almost from the get-go. The premise is pretty straightforward. It's based on a true story of Frank Dux, who competed in this underground tournament in Hong Kong, the Kumite, which is a no-holds-barred fight to the death almost. At least there's no rules in that particular sense. And it's by invitation only, and all of these fighters from around the world gather in this one spot to see who the best is. Now, in his particular case, Frank Dux, he is a military officer who actually has a job, and he just leaves it to participate in this. So he also has some federal agents who are chasing him, who believe it's too dangerous for him to compete in this tournament and want to take him back because he's too valuable to the military. And Donald Gibb plays his best friend, basically, who he meets before the Kumite starts, and somehow they just form this bond. And it's kind of interesting because when you think about it, it's like these two guys could actually meet and beat the hell out of each other, yet somehow they're forming this, very profound kind of friendship, and it has many, many layers of 80s cheese, yet at the same time, greatness. First and foremost, the story is simple, okay? And there is no other, elements that just get slapped in there because it's cool. It's a straight up martial arts movie. So you have training montages, you have setbacks, you have obstacles, overcoming those obstacles, fighting the big baddie at the very end. And so all of that just plays out straightforward. Now, I think there's a couple of things that really give this movie that extra strength. One is the fact that it addresses a conversation that so many martial artists had in that time, which is if all of these different styles came up against each other, which style would win? And it's kind of interesting that 5 years later, in 1993, the UFC is created. And we kind of found out for ourselves which style reigns supreme. And then the second thing, and I really attribute this to Donald Gibb specifically, because this movie could have very easily just gone off the deep end into the realm of ridiculousness, especially with, all due respect to Van Damme, and I still have a lot of love for him. I will always watch his movies. But let's be real. We're not watching his movies because he's the action movie incarnation of Daniel Day-Lewis, okay? There are some limitations in that way, although there are a couple of flashes of, believability and just really good performance. But with Donald Gibb, what he brings to the table is, this big, burly, kind of intimidating guy, but also there is a lightheartedness to him. And I think having those moments of humor and levity allow for the movie to not have to take itself so seriously. Everything from his line deliveries when he's like, "Yo, Frankie," to, "No shit, you accept his invitation," and then there's this one moment with Forrest Whitaker, of all people. He makes an appearance in this movie where he says something very, very crass to him, which is so off the chart, it just makes you laugh. And then because of that, I think, we kind of laugh a little bit. We just have fun with the movie instead of allowing the movie to be taken so seriously with regard to its tone. So I think if anyone else had done that role and then still kind of brought the same seriousness and earnestness to the movie, which the rest of the movie does have. But him specifically, having that bit of a comedic element in the package of this big, intimidating, hairy, and gruff dude, I think really helps with, you'll go back to it because there's something comforting about how it all goes down, and how it all blends together as a story and as a movie. And then the last little thing, there's like an extra aside. The music, I don't remember. I think it's I think it's Paul Herzog is the composer. Classic, great stuff that you can still listen to and like put it on highlight reels if you're a martial artist, and it still works. But you also have the 2 songs from Stan Bush. You have Fight to Survive, which plays over the montage of like day 1 of the Kumite as all these fights are happening. You have On My Own, which is in, I believe, the 2nd day of the Kumite, when Ray Jackson's character, played by Donald Gibb, gets seriously hurt by the main bad guy, and Jean-Claude Van Damme is kind of walking the streets of Hong Kong, processing all of this. Somehow here's this tournament where people definitely get hurt, and he's somehow still feeling very, very sad and forlorn that his friend got hurt. I mean, it's kind of an obvious conclusion if you think about it. But the song is still great. It matches the tone. It sounds very 80s, but yet if you grew up in the 80s watching this, you'll go back to it. It has like that timeless quality of nostalgia to it. Anyways, if you haven't seen Bloodsport in a long time, I recommend that you do tonight or very, very soon. Anyways, those are my thoughts. What about you guys? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Smash that like button, give me a follow, and I'll see you guys next time.